The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports for my hospitality empire. Victoria Chin, Madison's wedding planner, sounded nervous as she delivered the message my family had obviously rehearsed. "Miss Harrison, I'm calling about your sister's wedding next Saturday. Your family has decided to revoke your invitation. They feel you're not needed anymore and that your presence might cause unnecessary drama." I leaned back in my leather chair, looking out at the city skyline from my penthouse office. For 3 years, my family had assumed I was barely scraping by as a freelance event coordinator, taking on small birthday parties and anniversary dinners. They had no idea that I owned Harrison Hospitality Group, a $3.8 billion empire of luxury venues, 5-star hotels, and exclusive event spaces across 12 states. "That's fine, Victoria," I said calmly, setting down my Mont Blanc pen. "But tell them something for me." "What would you like me to tell them?" I smiled, glancing at the signed contract on my desk. The same contract Madison had begged me to help her secure 6 months ago when she couldn't afford her dream venue. The contract for Chateau Belmont, the most exclusive wedding venue in the state, with a 2-year waiting list and a $250,000 minimum. "Tell them the venue they booked is actually mine." The silence on the other end was deafening. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "Chateau Belmont. I own it, along with 37 other luxury venues across the country. You might want to check your contracts more carefully, Victoria." The backstory began 18 months ago when Madison announced her engagement to Trevor Walsh, son of a prominent tech entrepreneur. The family immediately went into overdrive planning what Dad called the wedding of the century. Mom hired Victoria Chin, the most expensive wedding planner in the state, and Madison set her sights on Chateau Belmont. There was just one problem: they couldn't afford it. I was having coffee with Madison when she broke down crying about the venue costs. Despite Dad's successful accounting firm and Mom's boutique real estate business, $250,000 for a single day was beyond their reach. Madison had been calling venues for weeks, getting rejected or quoted prices that made her panic. "Emma, I don't know what to do," she sobbed into her latte. "Trevor's family expects perfection. His mother keeps talking about their country club connections and how important this wedding is for business relationships. If I can't book somewhere spectacular, I'll be humiliated." That's when I made the call that would change everything. 2 days later, Madison called me screaming with joy. "Emma, you'll never believe it. Chateau Belmont had a last-minute cancellation. Victoria says it's a miracle. Someone paid the full deposit and then backed out. We get the venue for just the catering costs." I smiled and congratulated her, never mentioning that I'd personally paid the $250,000 deposit and covered all the additional fees. The miraculous cancellation was my own booking, transferred to Madison's name through a shell company. It wasn't charity. It was strategy. You see, I'd been quietly building my empire while my family dismissed me as the failure who couldn't hold down a real job. While they attended country club dinners and bragged about their conventional successes, I was acquiring distressed properties, renovating historic buildings, and creating the most sought-after event venues in the region. Harrison Hospitality Group started with a single bankrupt reception hall I bought for $180,000 when I was 26. The previous owners had no vision for its potential. I saw a diamond in the rough, a 1920s ballroom with original hardwood floors, crystal chandeliers, and architectural details that modern venues couldn't replicate. Within 6 months, I'd transformed it into the most booked wedding venue in the city. The profits from that first venue funded my second acquisition, then my third. By year 2, I owned 8 properties. By year 3, I had 22 venues across 4 states. The business model was simple. Buy undervalued historic properties, restore them to their original grandeur with modern amenities, and create exclusive experiences that wealthy clients would pay premium prices to access. While other venue owners focused on volume, I focused on luxury and exclusivity. But my family never saw any of this success. To them, I was Emma the disappointment. Emma who dropped out of law school to play with parties. Emma who drove a modest Honda Civic and lived in a small downtown apartment. Emma who wore simple clothes and never flashed expensive jewelry. They didn't know about my real residence, a restored Victorian mansion on 12 acres overlooking the lake, purchased under the name of one of my holding companies. They didn't know about my collection of classic cars stored in a private garage facility, or my investment portfolio worth more than their combined net worth? I maintained the charade carefully. The downtown apartment was real. I used it as a city office and crash pad during busy event seasons. The Honda Civic was real too, though it was one of 15 vehicles I owned. I dressed modestly for family gatherings and kept my opinions to myself when they offered unsolicited career advice. You should really consider going back to school, Dad would say during Sunday dinners. Get a proper business degree. Maybe I could get you an entry-level position at the firm. The event planning thing is nice as a hobby, Mom would add, but you need to think about stability, health insurance, retirement planning, real adult responsibilities. Madison was the golden child, the successful marketing director who made smart choices and married well. She bought her first house at 28 with a conventional mortgage and a sensible budget. She drove a leased BMW, wore designer clothes, and documented her picture-perfect life on social media. But there was one thing Madison wanted that her picture-perfect life couldn't provide: the wedding venue of her dreams. The months leading up to Madison's wedding revealed exactly how my family viewed me. During planning meetings, I was either ignored entirely or assigned menial tasks like addressing invitations or organizing transportation for elderly relatives. Emma can handle the small details, Madison would say dismissively. She's good at that kind of thing. When discussions turned to guest lists, catering choices, or decoration themes, my input was politely dismissed. Thanks for the suggestion, honey, Mom would say with a patronizing smile. But Victoria is the professional here. We should trust her expertise. Victoria, to her credit, seemed uncomfortable with how my family treated me. She'd often ask for my opinion on logistical details, and I could tell she was surprised by my knowledge of venue operations and event management. But she never pushed when my family overruled my suggestions. The real insult came 3 weeks before the wedding. Madison called a final coordination meeting at Mom and Dad's house. The entire family gathered around the dining room table with vendor contracts, timeline spreadsheets, and detailed floor plans spread across the mahogany surface. Now, Madison announced, we need to discuss some sensitive family matters. She exchanged glances with Mom and Dad before continuing. Trevor's family is very particular about social appearances. His father's business associates will be attending, along with some prominent community leaders. We need to make sure everything reflects the right image. What Madison is trying to say, Dad interjected, is that we're concerned about potential embarrassment. I looked up from the seating chart I'd been reviewing. Embarrassment? Well, Mom sighed, you have to understand, sweetheart. Trevor's family doesn't know about your situation. They assume everyone in our family has achieved a certain level of success. My situation? Madison shifted uncomfortably. Your career instability. The fact that you're 32 and still living in that tiny apartment. The way you dress so modestly. Trevor's mother specifically asked about your achievements, and it was awkward trying to explain. Explain what exactly? That you're still figuring things out, Dad said gently. That you're working on getting your life together. That not everyone in our family has reached the same level of professional success. I set down my pen and looked at each of them carefully. So what are you suggesting? We think it might be best if you kept a low profile during the reception, Madison said. Maybe avoid the head table area where Trevor's family will be seated. Stick to conversations with our side of the family, people who understand your circumstances. And perhaps, Mom added, don't mention your work unless specifically asked. If someone inquires about your career, maybe just say you're in event services and leave it at that. I nodded slowly. I see. It's not that we're ashamed of you, Madison rushed to explain. We love you exactly as you are. But this day is so important for my future with Trevor, and his family's opinion really matters for his business relationships. Of course, I agreed. I understand completely. That was Tuesday. By Friday, their understanding had evolved into something more direct. The final blow came through Victoria's phone call on Tuesday afternoon, exactly 1 week before the wedding. Miss Harrison, I'm calling about your sister's wedding next Saturday. Your family has decided to revoke your invitation. After I revealed that I owned Chateau Belmont, Victoria's voice became very small and very careful. Miss Harrison, I think there may have been some kind of misunderstanding. Could you please explain what you mean about owning the venue? It's quite simple, Victoria. Harrison Hospitality Group owns 38 luxury event venues across 12 states. Chateau Belmont is our flagship property. I've personally overseen every detail of its restoration and operation for the past 4 years. I could hear papers rustling in the background. But the contract was arranged through your sister directly. She provided the deposit and signed all the agreements. Actually, if you check your records, you'll find the original deposit came from HHG Holdings, one of my subsidiary companies. The contract was then transferred to Madison's name as a gift. I assume she never mentioned that detail. More rustling. Then a very long pause. Miss Harrison, I need to ask, when you say you own the venue, I own the building, the grounds, the business, and every piece of equipment inside it, including the Baccarat crystal chandelier in the main ballroom that Madison specifically requested, including the grand piano she insisted on for the ceremony, including the imported Italian marble in the bathrooms that your design team called absolutely essential for the guest experience. Another pause. And your family doesn't know this? My family believes I coordinate small birthday parties and anniversary dinners. They have no idea about my actual business operations. Oh my God. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. Miss Harrison, I am so sorry. If I had known, I would never have agreed to deliver that message. Your family instructed me to tell you that your invitation was revoked because they felt you weren't needed and might cause drama. I laughed softly. Well, Victoria, they were half right. I'm definitely not needed. The venue will run perfectly without me. I have an excellent staff. But as for the drama part, what should I do? Should I tell them immediately? No, I said, glancing at my calendar. Saturday is Madison's big day. Let her have her perfect wedding. But I want you to deliver a message for me. Of course. Anything. At exactly 11:30 p.m., when the reception is winding down and everyone has had enough champagne to be relaxed but not enough to forget the conversation, I want you to make an announcement. What kind of announcement? Tell the wedding party that the owner of Chateau Belmont would like to congratulate the happy couple personally. Then call me on speakerphone. And then I'll explain to Madison, Trevor, both families, and all their distinguished guests exactly who paid for their magical evening. Saturday arrived with perfect October weather. I spent the morning reviewing reports from my other venues, a corporate retreat at our Colorado Mountain Lodge, a charity gala at our Nashville mansion, and 3 smaller weddings at various properties across the region. At 2 p.m. I received a text from Mom. Hope you understand why we made this decision. It's what's best for Madison. At 4:30 p.m., Madison posted Instagram photos of herself in her wedding dress with the caption, "Surrounded by everyone who matters most. Perfect day at the perfect venue. #blessed #dreamwedding." At 6 p.m. Victoria sent me a photo from inside Chateau Belmont's bridal suite. She looks beautiful. I feel terrible about this whole situation. At 7:15 p.m. the ceremony began. I watched the live stream that Madison had set up for distant relatives, seeing my own venue filled with flowers I'd grown in our private greenhouse, lit by chandeliers I'd personally selected and restored. At 8:45 p.m., dinner was served using china and crystal from our exclusive collection, prepared in kitchens I'd designed and equipped to 5-star hotel standards. At 10:30 p.m., Trevor's father gave a toast praising the Walsh family's good fortune in connecting with such a successful and distinguished family as the Harrisons. At 11:30 p.m. exactly, Victoria took the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just one moment. The owner of Chateau Belmont would like to offer personal congratulations to Madison and Trevor. I answered on the first ring, my voice projecting clearly through the ballroom sound system. Good evening, everyone. This is Emma Harrison, owner of Chateau Belmont and Harrison Hospitality Group. The silence was immediate and complete. I wanted to personally congratulate my sister Madison and her new husband Trevor on their beautiful wedding. Madison, you looked absolutely radiant walking down the aisle of my ballroom, and Trevor, you're a lucky man to be joining our family. I could imagine their faces, the confusion, the dawning realization, the panic. I also wanted to thank all of tonight's guests for choosing Chateau Belmont for this special celebration. Your presence here tonight has made this venue even more meaningful to me, as it represents not just a successful business investment, but a gift of love to my sister. The pause that followed was probably only 5 seconds, but I'm sure it felt like hours to my family. Madison, when you called me crying about venue costs 6 months ago, I knew I had to help. That's why I arranged for your miraculous last-minute cancellation. The $250,000 deposit and all associated fees were my wedding gift to you, transferred through my holding company so you could have the day you dreamed of. Now I could hear murmurs and whispers in the background. I hope you've enjoyed the imported Italian marble bathrooms, the restored 1920s hardwood floors, the baccarat crystal chandeliers, and the custom-grown floral arrangements from our private greenhouse. Every detail of tonight was designed to create perfect memories for you and Trevor. Emma. Madison's voice was barely audible through the speaker. I understand that my family felt my presence tonight might cause embarrassment among Trevor's distinguished guests. I respect that decision. But I wanted everyone to know that the Harrison family's success extends beyond the conventional achievements you've heard about this evening. I looked out my penthouse window at the city lights below, each representing thousands of people whose special moments had been celebrated in my venues. Mr. Walsh, you mentioned in your toast how fortunate Trevor is to be joining a successful family. I wanted you to know that Harrison Hospitality Group has facilitated over 2,400 weddings in the past 4 years, including ceremonies for 3 governors, 12 Fortune 500 CEOs, and countless other couples who trusted us with the most important day of their lives. The murmurs were getting louder now. Our venues have hosted state dinners, corporate retreats for major tech companies, charity galas that have raised over $47 million for various causes, and hundreds of intimate celebrations for families who simply wanted their special moments to be perfect. I paused, letting the magnitude of that information settle. Madison, I hope you understand that my absence tonight wasn't about punishment or hurt feelings. I wanted you to have exactly the wedding you envisioned, without any complications or family drama. Your happiness has always been more important to me than recognition or credit. But Emma, Madison's voice came through the speaker, tears obvious in her tone, why didn't you ever tell us? Because you never asked, I said simply. You assumed my small apartment and modest car meant failure. You assumed my quiet presence at family dinners meant I had nothing valuable to contribute. You assumed that because I didn't follow your traditional path to success, I hadn't found success at all. The ballroom was completely silent now except for Madison's quiet crying. I maintained that fiction because it seemed to make you all more comfortable. Dad, you enjoyed feeling like the family's primary provider. Mom, you liked having someone to give career advice to. Madison, you felt more confident about your achievements when you could contrast them with my apparent struggles. We never meant. Dad's voice, uncertain and defensive. I know you never meant to be cruel, I continued. You genuinely believed you were protecting Trevor's family from embarrassment. You thought you were making a wise decision based on accurate information. The problem was your information was completely wrong. I stood up and moved to my floor-to-ceiling windows. Trevor, I want you to know that your business associates tonight have been celebrating in one of the most exclusive venues in the country. The wine you've been drinking came from our private collection, valued at over $2 million. The 5-course dinner was prepared by our executive chef, who trained at Le Cordon Bleu and has cooked for 3 U.S. presidents. Emma, Mom's voice now shaky and small, we had no idea. Of course you didn't. Because you never looked beyond your assumptions. When Madison needed help with venue costs, none of you thought to ask if I might have connections in the event industry. When she struggled with vendor negotiations, none of you considered that I might have expertise in those areas. The irony was delicious and I couldn't resist highlighting it. Madison, do you remember when I offered to help coordinate your vendor meetings and you said I should stick to small birthday parties? The vendors you struggled to negotiate with, the florist, the photographer, the string quartet, they all offered discounted rates to Harrison Hospitality Group clients. I could have saved you $30,000 with 3 phone calls. Oh God, Madison whispered. But you believed I wasn't qualified to help with anything important. So instead, you paid full retail prices and complained about the costs for months. I let that sink in before continuing. Victoria has been wonderful to work with, by the way. Madison, your wedding planner has been confused all evening about why I wasn't here, given that she's been coordinating with my staff for 6 months. She couldn't understand why the owner of the venue wasn't attending such an important family celebration. Miss Harrison, Trevor's voice came through clearly now. "I owe you an enormous apology. My family, we had no idea about your achievements. Madison's family described you as someone still figuring her life out," I finished. "Someone without professional accomplishments worth mentioning. Someone who might embarrass you in front of your business associates." "We are mortified," Trevor continued. "My father specifically mentioned earlier how impressed he was with this venue and asked about booking it for corporate events. If we had known." "Trevor, you have nothing to apologize for. You acted on the information you were given. My family genuinely believed they were protecting your reputation." The conversation continued for several more minutes, with family members trying to process what they'd learned. Trevor's father asked detailed questions about our corporate event capabilities. Several guests requested business cards for future events. Madison cried through multiple apologies. Finally, I addressed the elephant in the room. "I want everyone to understand something important. I didn't reveal this information to humiliate anyone or ruin Madison's wedding night. I revealed it because my family's assumptions about my life have created a pattern of dismissal that needed to be addressed." "What do you mean?" Dad asked. "Dad, for 3 years you've offered to get me entry-level positions at your accounting firm. A firm that handles small business bookkeeping and individual tax returns. Harrison Hospitality Group's annual revenue is $340 million. Our accounting needs are handled by a team of 12 CPAs and require sophisticated international tax strategies." Silence. "Mom, you've repeatedly suggested I should get into real estate because you think event planning isn't a serious career. I own 47 properties across 12 states, with a combined value of $2.1 billion. Last month alone, I closed deals worth more than your boutique agency handles in a full year." More silence. "Madison, you've spent family dinners explaining basic business concepts to me because you assumed I didn't understand professional environments. I employ 847 people across all my properties. I've been featured in Hospitality Industry magazine as one of the top venue entrepreneurs under 40. Forbes listed me as a rising star in luxury event management." The weight of their misunderstanding was finally becoming clear. "But here's what I want you to understand," I continued, my voice softer now. "My success doesn't diminish yours. Dad, your accounting firm serves an important purpose in our community. Mom, your real estate work helps families find homes. Madison, your marketing skills are valuable and impressive. Then why didn't you ever correct our assumptions?" Madison asked through her tears. "Because I was curious to see how long you'd maintain them," I admitted. "Because I wanted to understand if your love for me was conditional on my achievements. Because I wondered if you'd ever ask about my life instead of just making assumptions about it." The truth hung in the air like expensive perfume. "And now?" Dad asked quietly. "Now you know, and we can decide how to move forward." The conversation ended with tentative plans for a family dinner the following Sunday, at my lake house, which I finally offered to show them. Madison asked if she could call me later to talk privately. Trevor requested information about booking our Colorado property for his company's annual retreat. As I hung up the phone, I realized something had fundamentally shifted. The family dynamic that had dismissed me for years was suddenly gone, replaced by uncertainty and curiosity. Victoria called back an hour later to check on me. "How are you feeling?" she asked gently. "Relieved," I answered honestly. "It's exhausting to pretend to be less than you are. Your family seems genuinely shocked. Madison couldn't stop crying after you hung up. She's processing the fact that every assumption she's made about my life for the past 3 years has been wrong. That takes time. What happens next?" I looked out at the city again, thinking about the empire I'd built while my family thought I was struggling. Next, they learn who I really am. And I learn whether they can love the real version as much as they pitied the fictional one. Madison's wedding night had ended with an unexpected revelation. But for the Harrison family, it was really just the beginning. The real question wasn't whether they could forgive me for hiding my success. The real question was whether I could forgive them for assuming I had none. But as I settled into my leather chair with a glass of wine from the same collection that had impressed Trevor's business associates, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years around my family. Hope. Tomorrow would bring new conversations, new understanding, and perhaps new relationships built on truth instead of assumptions. And for the first time in 3 years, I was genuinely excited for Sunday dinner with my family. After all, I had a beautiful lake house with plenty of room for everyone and a lot of stories to tell.